Well, mortgage rates are about 6% these days for 30 years. And let me get the payment. 100 data. I want to make the difference 0 by changing the payment. Okay. So roughly $600 payments. And once I have that, the mortgage duration is 10.7 basis points. That means for each 1 basis points increase in the interest rate, the value of this mortgage is going to go down by 0.1% or so. Okay. So remember, if I'm committed to this mortgage, I need to fund this mortgage somehow, right? Assuming I'm keeping this in my books. Where does most of the funding of the banks come from? Anyone? Most of the banks fund themselves from their deposits, right? And that means when the overall short-term interest rate increase, they have to pay higher on deposits. You know, I have an account on Robinhood. About a year ago, it paid almost nothing to me on my positive balances. Now it's paying 4.15%. Okay. Technically speaking, Robinhood is like almost like a bank, but most of the banks are in similar situation. You may not get any interest in your checking deposits, but those are small. Most of the funding actually comes from short-term accounts of corporations, so they have to pay interest on those. And they also go to the market. Fed funds rate market is an example. They use the repo markets, what have you. So most of the funding for the banks are based on are short-term. Hence, if short-term interest rates go up, they have to pay more interest on those. That means you have an asset that has a fixed interest rate, okay? But you have to fund it at a variable interest rate. That means you have a risk of higher interest rates. So in order to hedge this exposure, you need to get into a contract that's going to make or lose, that's going to make you 10 points BPS. So if this is $100,000, let's see. Yeah, I missed that. So for every 1 basis points move, you're going to lose $107. Okay. Now let's think about a position that would make us $107 if there's a 1 basis point move. To kind of make it a little bit Okay. Just to make it a little bit easier on me, I need to do something that's going to make me $1,000 if the interest rates go up by 1 basis points. Now, let's think about the euro dollar futures. The so-called tick value is $25. That means if you are long, every 1 basis points increase in the interest rate is going to make you lose $25. So to make money on this thing, if interest rates go up, I need to be short, okay? So I need to short some of the euro dollar contract. So for each interest rates move, one contract is going to make me 25. But I want to make 1072. Actually, let me do it here. 1072 divided by 25. And let's put a negative in front of it. I need to be shorting 42 contracts. Actually, let's not put a negative. You know, view the negative as being short. I need to short roughly 43 contracts. That's it. So every interest rates move. Mortgage duration changes a little bit, which is something called convexity, which I was going to talk about today, but given that we got robbed sometime, I'll talk about it on Wednesday. Because if interest rates go up to 7, the duration actually changes, okay? So as the duration changes, you're going to have to adjust your position as well. And there's a cost to that, and we'll talk about how to handle those. But at least in the short term, that euro dollar futures allows me to hedge. If interest rates went up 6 to 601, the value of my asset is going to go down by $1,072, but I'm going to make 1,072 on the futures contract. So I'm basically hedged. That's how you use short-term interest rate futures to hedge variable interest rate exposure. But this is typically not a very good idea for long-term assets. And on Wednesday, we're going to talk about another contract. It's called interest rate swap. That's useful for 2 reasons. One, it is more of a direct hedge method. So over the next 30 years, I basically am exposed to interest rates going up or down. So I'm going to pay variable interest rate, right? So what if I found a counterparty and I said, you pay me variable interest rate, I pay you fixed interest rate. We determine what that fixed interest rate is going to be. That's called the swap rate. And every 3 months, we just exchange the difference between the two. So you pay me variable, I pay my funders variable. So I get variable, I pay variable, I'm hedged on that side. I pay you fixed, but my mortgage client is paying me fixed as well. But I can do that as a 30-year interest rate swap, as long as I'm willing to find a counterparty. And these days, it's not a big deal. In early to mid 80s, when this interest rate swaps first started, it was considered a very exotic derivative contract. Now it's so vanilla. You used to put most experienced traders on the swap desk. Now you put on the interest rate trading rooms, you put the least experienced kids on the swap desk because it is so liquid. Normally, the cash market determined the swap rate. Now the swap market is so liquid, it is a swap market that kind of drives the cash market. But they have to be linked with an arbitrage argument, and that's what we're going to do on Wednesday, and show A, have to use those to hedge variable interest rate exposure, and two, that swap rate actually allows you to price a bond that has a variable coupon. So it's kind of useful in both regards. And variable interest rates borrowing is very common in Europe. A lot of corporate borrowing in Europe is based on floating rate bonds or floating rate loans. It's US that's mostly fixed rate. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.